it's just the finance committee members are gonna be here for the first part. They're still chatting next door. He won't be coming for a few minutes. They're chatting with him. We're just gonna do some finance committee stuff. Where'd our third member go? Yeah.
No, I'm just gonna tell you.
Yeah. Where's the other kids? Yeah, oh yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
I thought if we were just in town, I thought it was so neat for him to see him in that meeting. Usually watching on my phone, so.
he'll be here in about 10 minutes or so, I
Oh, okay. Thanks.
If you want to start, we've got quorum anyway for the finance committee.
Okay.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, I put it up there so we can Skype easier and have a big screen for Skyping.
So, like a face rather than a giant face.
Yeah, so if Councillor Kelly couldn't be there, we'll just put his little sign in front of the TV and basically have his face and everything there.
Okay, I'll call to order the September meeting of the Finance Committee. Start with roll call.
Counselor Kelly,
Here?
Counselor Moore,
Here.
Mayor Reed,
Present.
Okay, and the first item on our agenda is reports from department representatives and discussion with councilors. So, if you'd like to report on the August results, Mr. Marks?
Uh-oh.
what'd you do?
This is the August report, this is the current report I just did.
That's the one you sent yesterday with your other documents. Right, the one with the wrong one?
Maybe you have it on the desktop here already. But I thought we looked that up before.
It's the one you sent yesterday with the mayor.
Yeah, that was an update.
Here, I'll just look for it, because I don't want you to shut me down by accident.
Okay. So one is August.
This is one,
I didn't take a look at what you sent me because I thought you were sent this one.
this was one from yesterday.
Right.
That's not the one you wanted?
Right. I think we want to go over the August numbers again. Well, I can go over the current numbers. It's either one, it doesn't matter. But the August numbers are the ones with the graph.
This is from July, so I don't, that's the one,
Not that one.
no, I don't have one over here before. This is the last one I have.
The one you
Oh,
showed.
that's the one I just showed you.
This one. You got it?
But that's not the one I saved there. So it's just matching.
So you have the other one too, right?
Yeah.
So we can look at them both. Okay, this was great. All right, so this, we might want to turn that light off so there's no glare on the screen. Other one, there you go. So I think we've gone over this in a department head meeting, but I don't know if we've gone over with the public. It's the August results. We're 2/3 of the way through the budget year, and that's what this line represents. And of course, what these bars represent are expenditures and revenues by fund, general fund, rec complex, parking lot, water, sewer, and library. And the corresponding statistics for what those bars translate into is general fund expenditures and revenues and net results, as well as all the rec complex, parking lot, water, sewer, library, other funds. And the net results through the end of August, citywide, $5.6 million roughly. And we covered how that compares to last year in the second graph. Same format, budget line, all the expenditures and revenues by fund. And by comparison, we have 3.9 million, almost 4 million in net results for last year. So the 2019 results overall are higher and by fund are better, especially in the area of the rec complex fund and the library fund, who had deficits this time last year. The reason for the rec complex performance increase over last year is that, you know, the inter-fund revenues coming from the general fund were increased from 625,000 from roughly about 250,000 last year on a year-to-date basis. So the surplus that's there this year is valid, but it's mostly from the increase in the inter-fund contributions from the general fund. Compared to the budget, you see the net results where the budget should be, the net results where the actuals are for each year. So we're well ahead of the budget in all funds. But of course, at this point in the year, it's very early. It's only 2/3 of the year gone, and a lot of expenses come at the end of the year, towards the end of the year, such as the retirement contribution, what's gonna come on December 15th. There are some additional revenues to show up, but we have a lot of large budget items left to go, especially in the general fund. You'll see the benefits side, we still have $1.7 million in healthcare that's gonna play out. And in retirement, police retirement and regular retirement, police and fire retirement, and regular retirement, you got $1,300,000 roughly that's gonna go play out. So those are big numbers to come at the end of the year. We do have some revenues that we're still expecting in the respective sales tax for non-property taxes. That's this available budget piece. And down here in state aid, we're still looking for the $2.8 million that we get for aids and incentives to municipalities. But each line item shows you the remaining budget, and of course, you're gonna have some large dollars coming out of some departments. Overall, we're looking at the available budget, about 1.8 million left net to be spent. That's in the general fund alone. Rec complex, you get the same kind of analysis here. And of course, these are the summary lines for all of the budgets that make up this first page. That's where those numbers come from. So if you're gonna pour through the report line by line, this is where the details come from that make up the graphs. These bottom line numbers right here. We don't include encumbrances because those are amounts that are obligated under POs are not actually spent. What we're reporting is the actual expenditures to date in the graphs and the stats for the graphs. Of course, last year's numbers are here as well, 2018. They started this area of the report. And then in the last section of the report is where we normally carry all the expense comparisons, which are a tremendous amount of detail. You have 2019, 18, 17, and 16 results. 16 is total year, 17, 18, 19 are year to date. And this compares the payroll in the first section. In summary, you see that we're 65% across the board, which is roughly 2/3 of the payroll expense, so we're right on plan. But behind last year when we were only 63% spent and the year before only 59% spent. Overtime, we're tracking better than last year at this time. We're 91% across the board spent, and this year we're only 70%. So even though we're behind 2/3 of the budget a little bit, we're still ahead of where we were last year, but behind where we were the year before. So these comparisons are great if you have the time to go through them line by line and see where the details are. especially for the department heads, they can track their history and see what's going on with their continuing costs. Equipment purchases are next, and it's not a lot of information there or a lot of dollars overall, but it's what we're buying for equipment out of the operating budgets for all the different funds. And then contracted services is where there's a lot of detail, a lot of meat, not as much cost as in the payroll section, but it's where all the individual expenditures for all the different types of expenses, other than personnel costs, are gathered and measured and compared to budget. We do show the year-to-date actual here and the encumbrances to get into the available budget. The encumbrances, once again, are the outstanding purchase orders for committing the city to obligations before the end of the year. Overall, in contract services, we're only 59% spent, whereas last year at this time we were at 81, and the year before 57. So we're performing better than last year, but I'm sure there's some distortion in last year's numbers that are creating that large 81% value, and I can't quite remember where it was, except for I think in community development, right? I think that's the big one, where we're recognizing a lot of expense for the DRI funds that we have to front to get all of the DRI projects set up with the state, and we're gonna be reimbursed for those. We were recognizing those as expense at this point last year. And those aren't as high as this year. Well, actually, we do have a big number there. This year, 651,000. But we have an offset under judgments and claims that's kind of negating that, and that's the reversal of all the accrued costs that we recognize for settling the fire labor agreements up through the end of 2018, and the actual cost for that is actually started to hit in 2019. So that large reversal covers a lot of sins. Overall, though, like I said, 59% compared to 82%. We're doing much better than last year at this time, which is one of the reasons why you see way up at the top of the graphs, back up to the top, that you see this better result in the general fund, 3.7 million, versus last year at this time, 2.8 million. After the contracted services piece, you have employee benefits that are compared. And this is where you have all your employee benefits for retirement, Social Security, workers' comp, health care, everything that you could possibly imagine. 57% spent this year, 55 last year, 59 the year before, pretty consistent. However, the budget is up over last year by roughly $250,000 because of increased costs that we have to carry for basic increases in healthcare expense, as well as workers' comp expense and retirement expense. So it's a ton of information to look at, and I believe we put these reports out on the web for review, so you can take a look at them there.
Available to the public?
I believe so.
Very good.
I think that Beth posts these out on the website as we update them each month.
Good.
So are there any questions? Once again, these results are August 31st, so they're 20 days old at this point. I have another report coming out for the end of September. But in the interim of doing that, we can run these reports without the graphs and all that to show where we stand through, actually, 2 days ago. I didn't run this for today, for tomorrow's results. But you can see by the fund, we still have $1 million surplus in the general fund.
This was wrong.
Rec complex fund, we have $149,000 surplus. And in the parking lot fund, we're actually at $30,000 deficit at this point. results have changed pretty dramatically for the parking fund, since the end of August. For water and sewer fund, we are $478,000 deficit in the water fund at this point. And also in the sewer fund, we're showing $225,000 deficit. Now, what we have to make sure we understand is that these transfers to capital projects are coming out of a cash reserve that isn't actually operating expense. So when we do the graphs for comparative actual expenditures, these items are netted against this item. So this would actually say that we're $600,000 for the good in the sewer fund. It's a little bit of a complexity with our reporting. And as well, this $345,000 will reduce this deficit for the water fund. And I believe the parking fund has a similar $44,000 transfer, which you have to add back to this, so you'll get that into a surplus once again as well. And the library fund currently showing an $81,000 surplus. And our debt service fund, this is where the city pays all of its bonded debt. We're currently showing a $148,000 deficit there, but that's because of a transfer has to be made from the debt service reserve to cover the latest debt service payment that we just made middle of September. And MLD is also listed here, which we don't normally cover. We cover that in the MLD meeting, however. They have a $2.3 million surplus as of September 17th. Any questions about all these numbers, or any numbers?
I have this tendency to get really excited when I see that general fund surplus of $3 million, but then that's when you usually remind me that we have a lot of expenses to pay for.
Correct.
We won't have that at the end of the year.
Now, right now, even through September, it's dropped from that $3 million figure down to $1 million surplus figure, but we have to add this $186,000 back to that, so it's about $1.9 million, but still down from what we saw over here at 3.7 in just 20 days in September. So those expenses are catching up because the revenues are falling off. We've collected all the property taxes that we're going to get without, pressing for collection on the ones that are left over through the middle of July. And this is where the revenues start to, or the expenses, start to catch up to the revenue at this point of the year. And yeah, there are some expenses that we still have to pay that are fairly large. Like we were saying before, the healthcare is one, and retirements are another. Those are big numbers. They're gonna happen across the board for all funds before the end of the year.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Marks?
Probably everybody's asleep, huh?
No. Interesting information, and thank you so much for compiling that for us, Richard.
You're welcome.
Next item on the agenda is to bring forward agenda items for tonight's common council meeting. Rather than go through these line by line, I would prefer that we save our discussion for the actual meeting since it's nearing 5 o'clock. Would that be okay with everyone?
Perfect.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to move these agenda items from our departments to be approved by committee and recommended to council.
Second.
Jeff will second.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
Make a roll call.
Oh, roll call, sorry.
Council Kelly?
Yes.
Council Moore?
Yes.
Mayor Reed?
Yes.
Okay, is there any old business for the finance committee? Any new business? I do have one piece of new business. I've made a proposed budget for, a proposed schedule for budget hearings. See if you don't mind
Oh,
passing.
no worries.
Should be enough.
Oh, I did jump off, sorry. So what, since I'm new to this, so what will take place on these dates? Back it goes.
I'll give you a brief explanation.
Oh my gosh. I don't think I'm gonna be ready for a total budget hearing on the 3rd. I've got the one piece of it that I'll be ready for, but not that, not the whole thing.
Public library on Halloween.
I know, same thing with public safety.
The things that will be needed for these meetings will be your budget narrative for each of your departments. And any
What does that mean? Can you explain that to me? Budget narrative?
Budget narrative is something we instituted last year for the first time, and we have an outline for it somewhere.
Yeah, it's the story of your budget in plain language.
Yes.
I'm sorry?
The story of your budget in plain language that can be
I can't wax
filed.
poetic on this one?
It could be
On the budget
filed
review.
On the website.
And you
It's
don't get the grading.
easier
Oh,
to
that's
digest
why.
by the general public. And that gives us a way to frame our discussion of the line items in the budget as we look at.
Last year's budget narrative is on the city's website, so you can refer to it. It's very helpful. It explains, like Rochelle said in plain language, what your departments are going to do in the year with the budgets that they have. This is a tight schedule, but I think it's doable if we stay disciplined. And that would be to make sure that you have your budget narratives ready on your night, and that you've studied the budgets for your various departments for which you liaison.
We don't produce
And
the
I-
budget
I-
narratives, the department
No,
heads.
that's
Departments
right.
do.
Right, right.
And I
Okay, I'm sorry.
anticipate that each
It's just
department head will be
momentarily-
notified of these dates. They will be,
I didn't know.
Yes.
Department is created the narrative?
Yes. We can do that.
That was good to know.
But like I said, I just wondering, I just wanna request and have you consider moving the whole thing up a week, because we have a big presentation on the 3rd, and I'm gonna be out of town next week. I mean, I know Patrick
Okay.
could maybe, manage the rest of it, but I feel like to do a good job for the 3rd, the rec complex presentation we've got, that it might be advisable to take a look at that closely on the 3rd, and then, maybe you guys will all allow us to just drop to the end of the process.
Yeah, let's put the rest of it on for November 7th with the capital budget if we can. That would also give the community development office more time.
Yeah.
Okay, so capital
what-
budget.
I'm just afraid you might start getting behind though. What if you did, as you said, the rec complex on the 3rd, move community development in with city infrastructure on the 10th and the 17th, somewhere in there?
That's the way to do it too.
So
that
do
work?
the entire rec
But-
complex.
Well, the 17th is also finance and budget. We could go, that's why, I was gonna say October 31st for the library, but public safety is also on that day.
Where are you gonna put the parking fund? Gotta go with that one too.
Put that in the CD.
CD and parking.
Yeah, I mean, just respectfully, it's the goal just to go over the whole budget. I mean, I think that inevitably, all of our discussions exceed the timeline. And I think a timeline is good, and we need to have goals, and we wanna make sure we're gonna get it passed before the second week in January, but, I would hate for there to be a rush.
Are you saying let's put the one on the November 14th and 21st out a week and put another week of these
I'm not
discussions?
saying anything other than we just need to be more flexible and, you know, I know that your goals are to, have this done by the 21st, but I don't know, I think we'll need to be flexible. We inevitably need that flexibility. You know, I can remember months during which we tried to cover a whole, committee's budget in the one meeting, but that might take time, so, more time than we plan. But anyway, that's all I'll say. You do whatever you want.
Well, if I could do whatever I want, I'd just do what's on this piece of paper here.
Okay.
But my fellow counselors are telling me that maybe we need a little more time, so that's fine. I like the idea of putting governance, strategy, city operations, have that October 3rd date focus on the rec complex solely.
Okay,
Is that
that sounds
acceptable?
good then.
Yeah,
That would
that's
give
what we're
me,
planning on anyways, yeah.
Okay, so, will you have decisions at that meeting that will impact the budget, you think?
we'll have, I mean, at this point, what I'm looking forward to are some recommendations.
Okay, okay. Okay, so then, for the community development part of your liaisonship, where would you like for that to go? Somebody said do it during capital budget on November 7th.
Yeah, I mean, that would depend on how much time you think would be necessary, you know, for CD to be, you know, that piece, where will it best fit in
Well-
terms of time?
You could certainly do it during, well, no, we can't. I started to say the 17th when finance and budget. Ours would be really short.
Well, so
But
then that seems like a
infrastructure's
good
also-
match.
But
bec-
we're also sharing with
Oh.
city infrastructure that day.
Oh, yes.
Because Jeff, as you know, has several departments.
That's why I was suggesting go out with capital budget on November 7th.
November 7th, okay, is that acceptable to everyone?
Yeah. Thank
Okay.
you.
That CD
So-
parking lot are gonna be on that day?
Yes, along with capital budget.
Okay. So I will
And
publish
presumably
a,
you'd be taking the whole hour for these things too, and just forego the working group meetings.
I think that's
Who's city infrastructure actually? Is that DPW?
MLD,
building
Water-
inspector.
Water and sewer.
Sewer?
It's mostly Jeff Moore.
Oh, no, building inspectors and public safety.
Yeah, yeah.
Building inspector. So, yeah, October 10th.
Elizabeth has 3 very big departments she liaisons for, so we've given her 2 sessions also, or a session and a half, so. And I'll talk to you more about how to prepare for that.
Thank you.
What does finance and budget mean? Just finance office and other items?
Oh, that's the name of our committee, Finance and Budget
Oh,
Committee.
okay, I'm sorry.
Okay,
So finances just do that day, the budget narrative.
yes,
Okay.
we'll continue with city infrastructure if that committee needs more time, and then we'll follow that same night.
Oh, I didn't even see that. So that, you built in flexibility there. Good.
Tried,
Yeah.
a little bit. You can always build in more. Any other suggestions? Okay, any other new business? Okay, with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Roll call?
Counselor Kelly,
Yes?
Counselor Moore,
Yes.
Mayor Reed,
yes. With that, we can begin our informal discussion for tonight for the council. Is there anything in this working session that people would like to draw out for more extensive discussion?
It would be, you know, I listened to Dean, I read quickly the procurement policy, but it'd be good just to have a review of that. I mean, I guess we could have it during the vote, but since we've got the time.
Sure.
Yeah, you know, kind of what prompted it and so forth.
So, in general, we should, for good best practice, we should complete an annual review of the policy, regardless of a specific request. But in this case, there was a specific request from DPW to clarify some of the language in the piggyback section. So before we talk about that, just to go to the beginning, there were some changes. The last time this was revised was October of 18, so about a year ago, a little less than a year ago. Based on Councilor Armstrong's request, we added some language which we had reviewed from Sacramento, which had certain environmental best practices which we had added to the kind of the preamble of the policy. So that adds some other criteria, which is spelled out basically halfway through that paragraph, and down is the new language. Substantively, if you go to section 2C1, that's where the majority of the changes are. So in general, we can.
Hold on.
Page 3.
Okay.
In general, we need to comply with general municipal laws, competitive bidding requirements, and that requires, if it's not set forth by state statute, that you have a specific policy describing how you make certain certain purchases which fall below the mandatory state statute requirements. And one of those requirements, or exemptions rather, allows for a municipality to piggyback on another municipality's contract, whether that it's a state, county, or federal level. There are certain requirements in order to piggyback onto those contracts. The previous language had some really specific dollars and cents, which DPW's, in DPW's opinion, tied their hands. So this language frees up their ability to make certain purchases in compliance with state law, but spells out how they should follow through with those purchases, but just gives them some more request and flexibility. Other than that, there was no other changes that I recall. So it's really just that section I had cited, as well as the initial section with the environmental concepts that we would in.
It also helps to clarify to all of our purchasers that there are requirements for quotes and such, so I agree it's good to revisit this once a
Yeah,
year.
it's always good to, it's just best practice to keep this as a working document that can always be improved.
Thank you.
I have a question on item B, on the agenda. What do we do if another agency indicates a desire to serve as lead agency?
Oh, I think item B in the procurement.
We ran into that with the annexation, if you
Yep.
recall.
So there's a process for a lead agency dispute. We did run into that with the annexation, where the city desired to serve as lead agent for the annexation, and the town also desired to serve as lead agent. So under that process, either entities made a request for the DEC commissioner to issue a ruling. In that case, it was favorable to the city. Typically, intra-city, you would not see a dispute amongst, say, the planning board or the zoning board and the council. That would be rare, not, the best form for the city, but that could occur as well in theory. But there's a process built in. Preferably, we would not have to invoke that because it adds additional time to get that answer from the DEC.
Right. What would that additional time be?
There's under the statute, it requires, a request and then a response within a certain time period, and then the DEC commissioners, under the statute, required to issue a decision within 20 days. But, if that is not strictly followed, there's not much recourse. You could go to court and force a decision, but by the time you did that, you would have added additional time. So it's supposed to be expedited, but in reality, it's at least a month, possibly longer.
Okay, thank you.
Regarding item 7D, I know with the homecoming parade, it's always been kind of foregone conclusion that we approve it, but I remember last year there were some issues regarding safety, and I believe with cars, actually, because the street isn't actually closed off to traffic, that I believe we asked the parade to keep the, I think it was one lane or something, or be conscious of. I remember that there was a safety issue, and we tabled it the first week that it came up, and had them appear the second week because we did have some parents complain about they were concerned for their child because the streets weren't closed off and they were still open to traffic during the parade. I don't know if there's anything in the request. I see that the streets will not be closed again, so I anticipate that we may have parents complaining about it again.
Yeah, didn't last year we wanted like a parent to be like every 100 feet or something?
Yeah, there were some sort of stipulation in there.
They're doing the same thing, it's in the description, and
Mhm.
they're doing the same thing you asked them to do last year.
Last year.
With the marshals walking, it's in the description I gave you guys on
Mhm.
Tuesday, so it's all.
Okay,
And the police chief said, he's stated that I sent you all.
thank you, Beth.
The chief's here to answer any questions on the Stone Garden transfer that we routinely do each year. I think you're all familiar with that item. It's on a reimbursement basis.
I don't know if this
What
is
is it
a,
again?
the Stone Garden grant.
Yeah, could you describe that briefly? I'm trying to think.
Item C,
Yeah.
chief, you want to discuss it?
The history of the Stone Garden Grant is actually something that was introduced by Bill Owens, a little local history. What it does is it offers federal grant money to local municipalities on borders to enhance border security. Clinton County acts as the lead agency, so this is a grant sharing through the Clinton County Sheriff's Office, through the Border Patrol. So this money is going to be used for equipment that will not just have it'll have many different uses, but it'll have a border enhancement use in the city of Plattsburgh. So it's a direct reimbursement. We just need to put the money out there first and then get reimbursed for it.
And what do we use it for in the city of Plattsburgh? Like what specific things?
I wouldn't want to say that in an open forum. Be happy to talk with you privately.
Okay.
I don't know if this would be permissible with here, but I have a question for the chief based upon a constituent calling me today. I don't know if I could ask that now or
Sure,
hold off.
working session, yeah. you
Sure.
bet.
Chief, I got a call today from a constituent, and they were concerned about motorists going across North Catherine at Bailey and kind of blowing through the stop signs there.
Okay.
They said they personally have had a couple of close calls, and at one point, he and his wife stood there and watched, and over a period of about a half hour, there were at least 10 cars that either went through the stop sign or came to a very fast rolling stop and just proceeded through, and that there were a couple of close calls, so just wondering if you could increase patrol there.
Absolutely.
That happens so many places in the city. Happens in my
You said
neighborhood.
what I was thinking, but.
It does, it happens everywhere, happens in my
No,
neighborhood, I've witnessed it.
Absolutely.
Rolling stop signs?
Yeah.
And not just that they roll through quickly, and.
Well, I asked him if they were rolling stops, and there were quite a few that there were no stops at all. So, doesn't know if there's And I haven't had a chance to get down and look. I don't know if there's anything that the stop sign comes up quickly or blocks the view.
No, I
No.
think like
That's a
Council
wide
Gill says,
open
it's
intersection right
indicative
there.
of traffic behavior.
Traffic behavior.
But no, we'll certainly.
Okay, thank you.
I
Let me
have
ask you something, if you're going down Bailey Avenue and you get to Oak Street,
Yeah.
can you go straight onto Robinson
No.
Terrace? Is that legal?
No.
No.
There's signs there that prohibit that.
I have a
That's like
different
if you're
question.
coming down, crossing Beekman
Oh,
and
so
going
same
down
one
Bailey at the
against
stoplight.
Wouldn't you? Yeah, could do that.
I have a question that, I don't know if you can answer it, now that we're talking about traffic and so forth. I don't know if this is a question for Joe. Is the use of a Jake brake prohibited in the city?
Could you say whatever you just said again?
A Jake brake, a
Jake
Jacob's
brake?
engine brake, it's like a secondary brake on a big truck, like a dump truck, and it sounds like brrrr, that's what you hear.
Yeah,
That was a
you-
pretty good sound effect, just so everybody knows.
That was pretty good.
And it, well, really, a lot of cities outlaw it
I've heard it.
because,
Didn't know it was.
there is absolutely no reason, if you're going at a reasonable speed with your big truck,
It's big
to
up.
use the secondary brake.
I'm not aware of anything specifically to Jake brake. But,
Okay.
I mean,
I hear that especially on Ruger Street where I live, because of the hill,
yep.
and the dump trucks go up. Do you want me to do it again? And I didn't know if we had an ordinance
I
that
don't-
prohibited that.
I don't believe so.
I just asked Dean, he doesn't recall seeing it in the code, and he went through the code, fine tooth comb recently.
Okay.
But you're right, a lot of cities will ban the use of compression brakes in the city.
Especially with 30-mile-per-hour speed limit.
While
It's
we're on
just-
that subject, actually, you folks had asked about the 15-mile-an-hour speed limit for a main mill, that portion right near Imperial.
We can forward them the email.
Are there?
Yeah.
What
and I don't know.
our planner's been researching is, there's a state law that prohibits moving to 15-mile-an-hour speed limits in anything but a school zone. That's a state law, not a local law. There are a couple of jurisdictions in the state that have had legislative exceptions, that has to go all the way to Albany, to the legislature and the Senate and all that. So we've asked her to explore other options and other ways to slow and calm the traffic down through there. But
Is it just 15 or?
anything less than 30, if I recall, wasn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
That's in a school zone.
30 miles per hour, other than that, just a school zone. And I can, if you come up when we have a chance and give me your email, I can forward you the law, if you'd like. But as Mayor indicated, he's asked her to look for all the other options that we might employ.
And also relate to traffic calming, the chief and I were talking about if we could use a pool of money to get a couple of devices that flash your speed at you. As a matter of fact, we think there may be one in the city somewhere already.
We
So,
did used to have one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen it.
so we'd like to reactivate those and get those going again. So that's another strategy we're working on at the same time, which may help the other traffic calming concerns. Any other items on the agenda? I think the very first item is just a relatively routine budget ratification resolution that the Chamberlain will insert as the budget progresses. I hope you'll be able to meet my recommendation for an appointment as an alternate to the zoning board. Zoning board, she's gonna try and come tonight as well.
I'm sorry, what are you talking about right now?
I just mentioned that I'm putting forward a name for an alternate to the zoning board. Second alternate, we did a first alternate, what, about 2 weeks ago?
Megan Whedon, I think it was like 4 weeks ago or something.
Yeah, it could have been, yeah. So we have one more individual, so we'd be fully staffed for the zoning board at that point.
Perfect. How many, so there's 2 alternates and how many people are on there?
5, I believe, with at least one term, 2 terms actually being completed this year. So at that point, we'll make the decision of reappointment or moving an alternate up, et cetera. Hello. We're just actually talking about this item. This is Elizabeth, who I'll be nominating, so. Want to just say, do you have any questions of her in the work session?
You have a good resume. That was good to see. Thank you for your service.
If there's no other items that you'd like to have some extended discussion, you can always offer council reports at this time. You've got the usual routine reports in your package. The chief has produced additional reports at the request of councilor Gibbs. You've got those, and to further discuss presumably at the next public safety committee meeting. Let's begin with governance. Councilor Armstrong?
Yeah, we had a meeting with OpenGov this Tuesday, and had some interesting discussions. We're going to follow up with further review of the deal that they've offered us, and we're gonna compare vigorously with Socrata and probably get a little bit more information from Socrata as well. So we're moving along with that. And we met then that same day to talk about our presentation. We're going to present a presentation on recreation complex facilities and operations and services on the 3rd.
You may have seen the offer from OpenGov today. They made the
Yes, I
formal
did.
offer.
Yeah,
We spoke a little bit earlier. Chamberlain Marks has a couple more questions for Socrata
Yes.
on comparability. And
Jeff told me.
presumably, once those are resolved, then
Right.
presumably you're all ready to make your recommendation.
Right.
We've already put the money aside in the budget, so that's not an issue.
good, thank you.
City infrastructure, Councillor Moore.
I see MLD has started excavation on their project on the street, so that will probably be down until it's completed, I guess, at this point, so did we notify everyone about that, having started on that? I know some people that own property there were very interested in when all these projects were gonna start.
So that's the Protection Avenue property. I imagine it'll take them another couple of weeks to complete there, and then DPW will be going shortly and right in after that to complete the road work.
And I guess, some of the paving will be completed later in the month, and we'll be all up to speed on paving for this year, I believe. And that's all I had.
Thank you. Finance and Budget, Councillor Kelly.
Well, we had our monthly meeting just a short time ago, so I don't really have anything to add.
Public Safety, Councillor Gibbs.
So, I've been doing some research on codes in other municipalities. I looked at Potsdam and Ithaca, and I forwarded some links to the mayor, who forwarded them to Beth and on to Mr. McMahon. So one thing I found is in Potsdam and Ithaca, so this goes towards this livable community report out that you guys participated in. They actually have a code where they measure the size of an apartment and the complex and how many rooms, and they oversee what they think is the allowable number of people to live in a place based on the size, which would completely eliminate the issue that was brought up in that community about many people living in there. So I forwarded that on. I'm hoping next week we can have a conversation during public safety with Joe about that. I haven't been able to find anything in other municipalities about, this is something I'm interested in determining how many people can be on a piece of property, residential piece of property, if they're having a party. So I haven't been able to find anything, so I'll keep looking. And so we Councilor Ensel and I received some reports, but there are still some outstanding reports that we haven't received as a council, and that has to do with the Plattsburgh Housing Authority reports and the progress reports from the resource officer. So if we could have those by next week. Those were brought up the last time that we had the meeting. They're all part of the contracts that were part of that, so those are still outstanding. Our animal nuisance control officer is supposed to be producing monthly reports, and I think we've only received one for the council so far. And if I remember correctly, the trap neuter release group is supposed to be submitting quarterly reports, isn't that correct? And the end of the quarter will be September 30th, so,
I have alerted them about that.
Yeah,
and
yeah. So I just-
expect a
just so
report.
we're all getting what we requested, so that's all I have.
Thank you. Plattsburgh Public Library, Council Ransel?
Yes, there is a meeting this coming Tuesday, and unfortunately, once again, it conflicts with another board meeting that I have to attend. So I don't know if Councilor Armstrong,
No,
you're
I'm
in
out of town.
You're out of town. So, but I will get the information from the meeting and pass it on.
And MLD Board President, Councilor McFarland?
Yeah, from what I understand, the move into the Sharon Avenue property is well underway. We signed a couple purchase orders that had to do with it, so, I'm hoping they'll be finished that soon, and I can't wait to see what it looks like when they are fully moved in.
I'm sure they'd be overjoyed to give any of you tours of it. It's quite an amazing facility there.
I did see the Budweiser sign has been removed.
Oh, have you? I took a tour about a week or so ago. It's, they're incredibly happy to be there. It's a great facility for them. Couldn't have worked out better. Any other items that you'd like to discuss now and bring up again in new business or additional council reports? Seeing none, would you like a 5-minute recess before we reconvene then? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, good. I can do it right now. All right. Thank you.
Sure. Let me check.
Hey, I've got it in here.
So playing a golf tournament last weekend, I've been alone. There's a lot of fun. That course is awesome. Both courses. If I live on my own, I'd have a membership there. Membership is there, it's cheaper than over there. It's a way nicer course. Yeah. Of course, it's alone.
Right.
An hour out there all the time.
December is all scattered into the place, so I think it's good for us to try to do the best we can to just.
It's definitely the nicest municipal course I've ever played.
So, I guess if there's a department head who's near the list, the end of the list, they just got a longer time to prepare the report, it's kind of be coming up pretty quick, so if you just send out a reminder of them, get their narrative together,
Laco, maybe?
just like we did last year.
Oh, I think it started.
Thank you.
I had remembered the comments and your problem behind. Well, in some states I had inquired about that, so I'm glad we did that.
I've never been to the Aquasana Casino.
I had your email, I could have emailed me that before. So, what the state says about speed limit.
Oh, the Cherubusco there? Why is it?
Fair enough.
I'm third now.
Right, I'll trade these.
I make up for my wrong age.
You're used to something. Really knowledgeable. So.
Seems like a very VHS outfit. Hornets?
Hornets are black and orange.
What? But not in real life. Not in real life.
You're talking about the creature. I see.
How's being back at school?
Kids are, yeah, my kids are sweet, really sweet. Nice group.
Teach
11th grade. No, I used to teach seniors. When you were still a student, I was teaching seniors. And I did that for 4 years. And then I got moved into 10th grade because there was a very, very unruly group coming up. And they needed a seasoned teacher.
So 11th grade, I had Miss Palpament. We read Hamlet. Do you still do Hamlet?
No, I do King Lear.
Ah, here King Lear's great. I haven't read it yet.
I do it with the AP kids. The regular kids.
With the AP kids, we read Macbeth when I was in AP.
It was my AP kids, we read King Lear, and my regular kids, we read Othello.
I've never read Othello either.
Excellent. Very timeless. Deals with racism, sexism.
Well, see, the funny thing about Othello is I've heard about it because I'm a learned individual, but I've never read it.
It's fantastic.
And I've had like 4 friends who were like, oh, I've read Othello when I was in high school. I'm like, that's interesting because like the main character's black, right? They're like, no. I was like, yeah, he is.
No, not really. He's a Moor, which means he's Moroccan
And I know what
Middle
Moors
Eastern.
are. I thought he was black.
He's called black because for the Renaissance time period.
But
he's
they were
dark
like,
skinned.
no, he's white.
No, he's not white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had no idea. They missed that one part.
Oh my God. Then you missed the whole part of it.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. It's very,
Do you like change it up? Shakespeare is what, 37 plays?
so many. But I think that if you're going to teach one, you really need to teach math.
Did you hear?
Like otherwise, what are you doing? Like I hate Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar was terrible. 10th grade
Love
curriculum.
Julius Caesar.
It's
We read
awful.
that in 9th grade.
10th grade. 10th grade.
10th grade.
10th grade.
Because 9th grade we read Romeo and Juliet. Romeo and Juliet.
It's terrible.
Romeo and Juliet's terrible.
Train car,
He's
right?
like, oh, I'm with Rosalind. And like 2 days later, he
On
falls
a
in love with
flatbed.
Juliet is killing himself. It's like,
Was going through the city?
I was Mark Antony. I had to do the old
Brutus.
or the mono.
He had to die now.
I have it.
I saw that. Yes, he was accompanied by a wide
Seen
load.
in Summer's Life Stream, but I never read it.
That's funny. And then Macbeth is a good one. So
What
very
time
good.
was that?
I like Macbeth. It's been too long since I read them. I have all of them at home. I've been meaning to read them all, but
I was at Stewart's and I saw that thing.
Oh, very good.
Oh,
Also
I think
very
that's his last one.
That can't
Yeah,
happen.
that sounds about
That
right.
can't happen.
Hey, here, Henry the
Yeah.
Fifth is really good.
I've read one of them. I've lost track.
We're going to begin tonight's council meeting with a pledge of allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Reed,
Present.
Counselor Armstrong,
Here.
Counselor Kelly,
Here.
Counselor Gibbs,
Here.
Counselor Ennis,
Here.
Counselor McFarland,
Here.
Counselor Moore,
Here.
The only comments I'd like to make are my gratitude for all the work that everybody put into the Battle of Plattsburgh events. They went on very well, very enjoyable. It's great to have all the various Navy bands and Coburg bands, et cetera, returning this year. First responders were out there helping out, police, fire, DPW, put an awful lot of work, and even MLD plays a role in making sure all the lights are shut down for the fireworks and such. So everybody came together. Recreation department was out there. Matt's office was out there. So thank you, everybody, and I'm very grateful to the community that also does their bit, the Battle Plattsburgh committee that really helped organize all of this. So great weekend was had by all. The weather cooperated. It's been beautiful weather ever since, so things can be like this for the next 6 months. That's it, thank you.
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of the Common Council held on September 12, 2019 are approved and placed on file among the public records of the city clerk's office.
Moved by Councillor Moore, second by Councillor Kelly. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Resolved that the payrolls of the various departments of the city of Plattsburgh for the week ending September 18, 2019, in the amount of $61,274.62 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby empowered and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councillor Kelly, second by Councillor Ansel. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. We already in working session offered the various city reports. Is there anything to add to the various city committee reports at this time? Seeing none, resolve the reports as listed are hereby ordered received, and any written reports are placed on file among the public records of the clerk's office. Moved by Councillor Gibbs and second by Councillor Ansel. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. No correspondences or recommendations from boards at this time. Please continue.
Resolved that the bills ordered by the Common Council for the week ending September 20th, 2019, in the amount of $1,178,507.17 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby authorized and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councillor Moore, second by Councillor Gibbs. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Members of the public, please grab an agenda. It's right outside the door, and if you have any comments, public comments on items on the agenda tonight, please come forward. There will be another public comment period at the end of the meeting for various general issues. Please continue.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves the city chamberlain to adjust the general fund budget for 2019 for unbudgeted costs for annexation, legal consulting, and downtown snow removal for a total increase in appropriations of $6,877 and a corresponding decrease in unassigned unappropriated fund balance.
Moved by Councillor Moore, second by Councillor Kelly. Discussion? Roll call.
Councillor Armstrong?
Yes.
Councillor Kelly?
Yes.
Councillor Gibbs?
Yes.
Councillor Ansel?
Yes.
Councillor McFarland?
Yes.
Councillor Moore?
Yes.
Whereas the city of Plattsburgh intends to complete
Beth,
asbestos.
we'll waive a reading and move to resolution.
Second. Moved by Councillor McFarland, second by Councillor Ansel. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Discussion of the item itself. Seeing none, roll call.
Councillor Armstrong?
Yes.
Councillor Kelly?
Yes.
Councillor Gibbs?
Yes.
Councillor Ansel?
Yes.
Councillor McFarland?
Yes.
Councillor Moore?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves the city chamberlain to adjust the 2019 general fund budget by $33,000 equally in estimated revenues and appropriations for Stone Garden Federal Grant Program income sharing from Clinton County to provide for purchase of technical equipment for the police department.
Moved by Councillor Ansel, second by Councillor Armstrong. Discussion. Roll call.
Councillor Armstrong?
Yes.
Councillor Kelly?
Yes.
Councillor Gibbs?
Yes.
Councillor Ansel?
Yes.
Councillor McFarland?
Yes.
Councillor Moore?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the Common Council approves Plattsburgh High School to have its annual homecoming parade on
Beth, I'd
Saturday.
like to make a motion to waive the reading and move the resolution forward.
I'll second.
Moved by Councillor Ansel, second by Councillor McFarland. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Discussion on the item itself.
Just once again, as we discussed in the work session, there is some language in the proposal to help safeguard the safety, of the participants, even though there will not be any road closures.
Roll call?
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
I'm honored and grateful to appoint the alternate member of the Zoning Board of Appeals, Elizabeth Gent, effective September 20th, 2019 to December 31st, 2021. She was able to attend. If you have any questions for her, we introduced her very briefly during work session. Thank her for being willing to serve. Roll call.
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Welcome
Result-
aboard.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the common council approves the adoption of a resolution amending and restating procurement policies and procedures for the city of Plattsburgh as set forth in a draft dated 9/19/2019, the entire text of which has been distributed to and read by the members of the common council.
Moved by Councilor McFarland, seconded by Councilor Ensel. Discussion. Roll call?
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor Ensel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
There's no travel requested this time. Are there any items for initial consideration? Any new business or additional council reports? Councilor Armstrong.
Yes, I'd like to recognize former Counselor Dale Dowdall. After Counselor Becky Casper's passing, the city designated the Rotary down on Route 9 as it intersects New York Road, etc., as Casper Circle. A group of us planted there, and some of us lugged water and kept it going, but the weed part was a little bit hard to keep up with, so Dale went out and he's completely weeded whatever accumulated in the last few months. It looks pretty good. I was starting to feel kind of nervous about it, but I thank him a lot. He does all kinds of stuff like that and remains very active. And the other thing that I wanted to do was let everybody know, as we know, we've taken the Climate Smart Communities Pledge. We are working on goals toward being a climate smart community. I would just personally, apart from any of my counselor duties and, obligations as Climate Smart Communities Coordinator, encourage people to join the students who around the globe are striking for a better future. They want adults around the world to protect their future by taking very swift and very drastic steps toward preventing climate catastrophe.
There's a climate meeting on campus tomorrow from 11 to 2
Oh,
p.m.
yes,
as
that's the
well.
other part I wanted to say. Yes, the students will be meeting in Amity Square at the SUNY campus, and there'll be things going on between 11 and 5 tomorrow. So any way you can show support and be an adult ally of the climate strike would be appreciated.
How do you do that? By leaving work?
You could if you wanted to, or you could go out during your lunch break and show your signs of support, or do whatever you want.
I'll be there.
Yes, you will. So will I.
Councilor Moore.
Just add one thing, Littleville Community Committee will be meeting next week to compile a written report for review by the council for the following week.
Perfect.
So what date will you have that report then? What date is that?
Well, it's going to
Be like October
It's-
3rd?
Yes, it's going to consolidate all the different presentations that we had here in a written form, so that everyone can look them over.
Good work. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other additional council reports? Seeing none, are there any members of the public please like to come forward and address the council on any issue of mutual concern? Please come forward, state your name and address if you can. Thank you.
My name is Laverne Hicks. I live at 9 Alex's Way. I have two problems, okay? One, is there any way that this council can notify whoever does GPS that Alex Way is not a road to Bombardier? I get people coming up, they say that GPS tells them to come there. I get people 3, 4, 5 times a week, all times of the night and day. And if there's any way this council can fix that, I would appreciate it.
Could we ask the planner to erect a sign, no access to Bombardier, if Bombardier is willing to agree to that, or something along those lines?
There is no access to Bombardier. They go down to the end of the street.
Mhm.
So,
You're suggesting to put a sign before they would
Before they make the turn,
continue,
before they
right?
make the turn, it'd have to be before they make the turn, it wouldn't do any
Yeah.
good.
I mean,
If they
there's a
made the turn,
sign
it
right
would
there
be-
that says Alex's Way. But they still come up and, they knock on the door and, I didn't order anything. So,
I didn't order 50,000 pounds of electrical equipment, huh?
well, it's not just that. It's like these Grubhub things, they order food.
Oh, I
They
see.
want to drop it off at my house. I mean, if it's already paid for, I'll
Prepaid,
take
yeah.
it, but it's not, unfortunately. Another thing I'd like to discuss is that bomb threat yesterday, or a couple days ago, okay? Nobody notified our little community that there was a bomb threat. We should have been notified. Right in my backyard, I have their paint stall where all their painting materials are. If there would have been a bomb threat there and it would have gone off, we would have been wiped out.
Mhm.
And whoever was head of that should have notified us. They should have notified everybody within a certain distance that could be damaged.
Chief, is
But-
that part of the alert system that the city use? I know there's a state jurisdiction here because of a bomb threat and everything, but.
I would respond that the investigators on scene would have taken that step if there were reasons to believe that were the case.
Well, when you read, I got an alert on my phone that there was a threat. I mean,
What was the source of that, Laverne?
huh?
What was the source of your notification?
News alert,
Oh, just a news alert.
and, I mean, I have a great grandson that I take care of. And, God forbid,
Yeah.
I just like that there be a system set up if there ever is anything like that. That, the people, it's like we don't exist there. Well, we do exist, and I want people to know it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other individuals, please come address the council.
Good evening all. Jamie Schwartz, Vice President, Plattsburgh Professional Firefighters. A few months back, the Common Council talked about doing a safety study for Plattsburgh. It was reported that both parties were going to be researching the idea. Back in July, there was an editorial in the Press Republican that brought up that great idea again. At our last local meeting, a question was brought up about us doing our own study. Our body decided to make a motion that we, the Plattsburgh Firefighters Local 2421, offer to the city to cover half of the cost of this study. We feel this will help take some of the burden off the city and the taxpayers. We were promised a meeting to discuss this with the Public Safety Committee, but apparently this isn't possible. We would like to give you 2 weeks to discuss this amongst yourselves and get us an answer as to whether you accept or not. We feel that an unbiased third-party study is a great idea. However, we also feel the longer we wait, the longer public safety will be in jeopardy. We have responded as of right now to 2,250 EMS calls in the city of Plattsburgh this year. That is 2,250 times 2 firefighters were not available if a fire broke out. That is also 2,250 times that we have helped people in Plattsburgh. With an ever-increasing EMS call volume and fire call volume, we have to have more firefighters than 2 to 4 firefighters available for fire rescue response. Please reach out to us in the next 2 weeks. Hopefully, we can make this work. We will continue to try to come up with ways to help the city hire the firefighters needed by still being fiscally responsible. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie.
Any other individuals like, please come up and address the council. Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second by Councilor Gibbs. Roll call?
Counselor Armstrong?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs?
Yes.
Counselor Renzel?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Sure.
Counselor North?
Yes.
Do you want to meet and talk about my calendar?
Hey, chiefs,
Do you want to meet and talk about the?
talk to you for just a second.
How about Wednesday the 25th?
Hey, how you doing over there?
How you feeling?
Okay.
Yeah. Feel like you're moving around and gaining strength.
I've gained 10 pounds since I've been home.
That's great. Oh, Julie's good cooking, huh?
You want some more?